If you're new to the channel, I'm Raelan Agle, and if you or someone you care about is going through something like long COVID or chronic fatigue syndrome, you are absolutely in the right place. Recovery science is moving fast, and what we do here is bring various experts on the channel and help close that information gap, bringing you the newest insights and practical tools as they become available. And now, for many of you, I know my guest today probably needs no introduction. I'm here with the amazing Miguel Bautista, founder of the CFS Recovery Program. And his experience with all of this is both professional and personal. Miguel went from being completely bedbound, bedridden, to living a full, now thriving life again. And that didn't happen by chance. It came from hope and determination and ultimately a real understanding of how to retrain the brain and work with your nervous system. And right now, Miguel is here in the hot seat once again to answer your most burning questions. So for those of you who are joining us live, you can start popping your questions in the chat right away, big ones, small ones, anything that's on your mind, and we will do our best to get through as many as we can. And also let us know in the comments where you're joining from. It's always so exciting to see so many of us coming together from all over the world and having this conversation. So Miguel, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. It's always exciting to come back here and answer a bunch of questions and just pretty much share a lot of recovery information for all these folks.
Yeah, this is such a great opportunity because in addition to your own personal experience with this and everything you've learned since, through your recovery program, do you know how many people have been through CFS recovery to date?
Yeah, at this point, well, we have like 4 different programs. There's different tiers, but in total, over 3,000 at this point.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. We've seen a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so that's a lot of data. That's a lot of experience of seeing what works, where people get stuck. So I know it's a lot to sum up quickly, but before we dive into the questions, I think it would be helpful for people who are new to you or your program. Like, what is your approach when you work with these people? What do you see as most effective to help people get past these chronic symptoms? And then specifically, I know we're going to talk about recovery cycles. So how does that factor in and why is that important to understand?
Yeah, so there's really 3 things we focus on. This is kind of the 3 pillars of what we do with anybody we work with. Number 1, it's education. I think that's the most important thing because, we can always tell people what to do, how to do it, when to do it. But if we teach people why they're even doing these things in the first place, like why they should do this stuff, what's happening to the body, that empowers the person to actually have that recovery, but also stay recovered. So number 1, it's education. Number 2, it's just building some momentum, like getting them unstuck on where they're at. Usually people reach out to us because they've been doing stuff, they've been watching videos, they've even, sometimes have made a little bit of progress, but they're in this plateau. So part 2 is just getting the ball rolling, picking up some momentum. And then number 3, it's just pouring fuel on the fire in a good way. So like optimizing that momentum, like building on top of the progress, building on the momentum, and just slightly adjusting things and tweaking things. But ultimately, we want to get that person fully independent so they know what's going on in their body. They know what to do to not just recover, but stay recovered. But I'd say education is probably the foundational pillar.
Yeah, I've interviewed a lot of people, as you know, that have been through your program, and I hear from many folks how helpful even just finding your videos and your YouTube channel are, and people are always, throwing out terms and concepts from your program, and I just love how you've conceptualized some of these things, like adjustment periods have become, common lingo for people because it's something that really resonates and helps them not panic about those symptom flares that come after activity. But I know you also talk about progress cycles. So what exactly is that referring to, and what does that look like in recovery?
Yeah, so a progress cycle, it's something I've kind of discovered and was able to put a label on because, after going through it myself and seeing thousands of cases over the last few years, the patterns are very consistent. Recovery happens in cycles, not in straight lines. And what we hear from a lot of people, like even to this day, you probably hear it. It's, I was doing better, then I crashed. What am I doing wrong? But it's really a cycle of ups and downs. But, you want the trajectory to be moving in the direction of thriving health, right? So in terms of progress cycles, first of all, by definition, what is a cycle, right? A cycle it's a series of events that are regularly repeated in the same order. So if we look at recovery, there's typically these patterns where, you increase activity and then you have this kind of flare up. And then from there, it could go one of two ways. You could either actually level up, get a little bit better, or, if you start to downward spiral, you might actually lose some capacity. But the tricky part is it can be very unpredictable for some people if they're kind of going through it with trial and error. This is why sometimes people can do the exact same thing on multiple days, and then just one of those days they'll do the same thing, and all of a sudden they're flaring up. So it helps build in some kind of strategy into the recovery. So the easiest way to describe it's with an analogy. It's kind of like strength training or just working out in general, right? You go in there. If you want to get stronger, you go into the gym, do some push-ups or whatever exercises. Then you'll get tired. You'll go home. Usually you don't feel amazing the next day. You're actually a little bit sore, but that's actually a good thing, right? So you don't actually get weaker after a workout. Your muscles are just rebuilding. It's the same idea here. Our nervous system is just adjusting to that higher level of activity, but instead of getting sore, we're feeling all these weird symptoms, like the headaches, could be burning sensations, could be heart palpitations. So it's very different. It's different from getting sore, but it's a similar concept, right? So you also want to make sure that you don't push too hard, because if you push too hard in the gym, you're not just sore, but you actually get injured. So with the nervous system, you want to expand a little bit, but also dial it back slightly. So it's a strategic dance of expanding and then contracting, expanding, contracting the activity levels. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what a progress cycle is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I have taken that analogy that you have shared about the gym, and I've shared it many times in videos on my channel because it's such a great one. Maybe it resonates more for me because I'm a gym person, but everyone knows what it feels like when you go for a hike or you do some activity that you don't normally do, and then you wake up the next day and you can barely move. Everything's hurting, but you don't panic. Like, my body's broken. I should go to the emergency room. You just know it's a part of what's coming. You don't love it. It's not a fun day when it hurts to bend over and pick things up and sit down and all of that, but it's just part of the process.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard recovery described once. I think most of us get now. It's not linear. We wish it was, that every day was just a little bit better and easier than the one before it, and it stayed on this nice, neat line from start to finish. And I used to describe it a lot, sort of like a stock market graph that's going up and down. Yeah. But I heard it described as circular, which I thought was even better. So picturing, when you're doing these things, working with your brain and your nervous system, and overall, you're going the right direction. But it feels more like you're looping through, right? Like you could go up, go down, go up, go down. But overall, it's looping up towards where you're trying to get to. And if you only focus on the moment when you've looped down, it can feel like, what is happening? Am I going backwards? But unfortunately, there is no way that I am aware of to get past these chronic symptoms without occasionally feeling worse. And you speed that process up by not panicking when that happens and just accepting that that's an unavoidable part.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the journey.
Yeah. And that analogy, that's a concept that really helped me. Like my doctor, he shared with me this analogy, the spiral staircase analogy, which is exactly what you said.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of people.
I didn't steal that one from you. I do steal a lot from you, but that one I did not.
I was like, this sounds familiar, Raelan. Where'd you get this idea from?
Am I quoting you back to you once again?
No, it's and for people who haven't heard about this, it's exactly like that circle analogy. But think of a spiral staircase, but you're looking at it from the top view looking down. So if someone were to go on a spiral staircase, it looks like they're going in circles, like doing the same stuff, because sometimes you'll feel better. You'll have times of expanding activity. Then you'll flare up then you dial it back. It's usually in that order. It's like 4 things. Expand, you hit the ceiling, you flare up, pull back, and it's just going in a circle. But if you take that exact same spiral staircase and instead of looking at it from above, look at it from the side, they're actually leveling up every time. So they're getting slightly higher and higher and higher. You're on a new floor, right? So it's just a different perspective of looking at it, and that will change everything, because now you don't feel like you are going in circles. And if you actually look closely enough, you'll notice that you're able to do, a little bit more screen time on your phone, a little bit more clarity in your conversations, a little bit better sleep, a little bit more food tolerance. There's always some kind of sign, but people can get very hyper-focused on just how rough the flare-up is. But if you know it's coming, it's not scary because it's actually supposed to happen. It's all part of the plan,
Yeah. And I promise people who are joining us live, we're going to dive into these questions right away. I just have one more question for Miguel that I want to ask, because so many of you ask me this all the time. I've started calling it the $1 million question of recovery because it just comes up over and over and over again. And everybody explains it a little bit differently. So Miguel, I'd love to hear how you explain this, because I'm sure this comes up in your program as well. But people like, okay, I get this concept. Symptoms are going to come on. This is the process. Mm-hmm. But how much activity should I add on? And if I have symptoms, should I stop doing activity and wait until it passes and then start again? And then when I do start again, how much should I do? Understandably, I think people want a formula to follow. Mm-hmm. And I know that doesn't exist. But so when you're working with people in your program, how do you help them navigate that understandably challenging thing to figure out?
Yeah, you're right. It is a little bit of a formula. There's a few main ingredients here. Like, we actually created a guide specifically for this because we got asked it. I mean, every day we get asked it probably 10 times. And it comes up, right? It comes up. And it's really like, how do you optimize your level of activity? So you're not going too fast or too slow. What's like a safe zone to do it? So the main ingredient in this formula is actually, our emotions. And I'll go a bit deeper into this. You could have, like, 2 people can have the exact same symptoms, the exact same intensity of symptoms. But if one person is emotionally, they're handling it well, they're going to have a very different experience to somebody who is kind of like freaking out, right? And about to call 911, telling themselves, this is a crash, I did too much. So it really comes down to what is emotionally manageable for you. For some people, just having a few symptoms, that's their limit, because then they start, their mindset starts getting rocky. They start spiraling. For other people, their tolerance for discomfort is way, way higher. So it really comes down to how much can you handle emotionally to the point where it's manageable? And we have a scale. We have a few different scales. We share an analogy of like a car speedometer, right? We don't want it redlining the engine. We also don't want to go too slow. Like if you're driving a car, you don't want to hold up traffic. What is that sweet spot where it feels manageable? Also like a temperature gauge. You don't want it too hot or too cold. You want it manageable. There's so many different analogies for it, but it really comes down to the emotions. So one thing I did notice, though, the more I understood about this and the better I could respond to symptoms and stay like emotionally pretty neutral about the symptoms, the harder I could push it, because it just left more room in the tank for my body to adjust. But in the beginning, it was very difficult. I had to be way more careful. So going back to the progress cycles, I think your first handful, like I'd say the first 5 conscious progress cycles where you know what's happening, those are the trickiest ones. But once you start to recognize the patterns, you get more and more confident because you always come out of it. You know what happens. That's when you can start adding on more because you're emotionally more neutral when the symptoms come. So that's how I break it down. That is
helpful. I have never heard it explained that way. And this is why I ask, because everyone has a slightly different insights on it and helps us understand it better. So that was very helpful. So thank you for that. But it's time. I know we've promised questions, so let's dive in. What's our first question? Okay. Hi, I'm Linda from Massachusetts. Hey, Linda. Is it normal to go through a big dip during season changes? Ooh, this one comes up a lot. That's a great question, Linda. And any tips on how to deal with these changes in seasons?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I noticed you're from Massachusetts, USA. So there's two things, especially what we see in Americans, right? Number one, just the weather changing. It's a temperature change. So your nervous system does have to adapt to typically colder weather. It's going to have to heat itself up a little bit more, which requires a lot of energy. So you could feel a little bit more fatigued, maybe a little bit more run down, less sunlight. So that makes sense. The other big one, though, around this time of the year, especially November and December, high emotions. There's a lot of get-togethers. Thanksgiving is huge. Christmas, New Year's. It can be a very emotional time because, you're seeing all these family members and you may not be able to fully take part in that. And then I know I felt this, I see it in almost everybody, but you can also start to feel a little bit bad because while everybody's at the dinner table, you're experiencing symptoms and you can't fully partake. So what I always suggest is dial back the activity a little bit because your emotional bucket is going to be much more full during this time of the year. Now that there's, for example, if it was springtime, it's a bit different. You can actually have more energy because there's more sun. The days are longer, but especially this time of the year for Americans, I would dial things back a little bit. Like, I don't want to put a percentage on how much to dial back, but just keep that in mind. Just take it a little bit easier because there's a lot more going on with the holidays and family.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's sometimes what we think about and associate with those seasons, what's coming up. There is less sunlight. So whether you're facing, long COVID or not, there's a lot of people that find, they have to adjust into things that are changing. And it's also, we know, a clue to, neuroplastic symptoms, mind-body symptoms, when things like the weather can increase or decrease their severity. It's a pretty big clue that you're on the right track with the brain retraining and the nervous system work.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Great question. What's our next question? Okay. Hi, I am Joe from the UK. Hey, Joe. Have been in bed for the last 3 days. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Unable to get dressed, wash, or eat due to fatigue. Diagnosed with long COVID 18 months ago. Worst illness I've ever had.
Yeah.
So what do people do when those symptoms are so severe?
Yeah.
How do they navigate that?
It's a tough one, and I feel for you, Joe, because I've been in that boat many, many times. An analogy I like to use, because I like to use analogies to make things simple. Sometimes that happens, and sometimes the best thing you can do in that situation, I'll give you the simple answer or the more detailed answer. The simple one is respond as best you can, as in try to stay in your 3-foot world, right? Try not to think, okay, how is this going to affect me tomorrow? Did I just, remove all the progress I've made? Am I going backwards? Think of it as if you're in a boat right now and a storm just came out of nowhere. Now it's raining, it's windy, there's tons of waves. So at this point, you just need to hold on to what you can control, that mindset. Try not to obviously spiral. Try to stay in your 3-foot world. What can you control right now? And it is your response to symptoms. So, I guarantee you're going to come out of this flare up like you've always done hundreds of times in the past. You just need to keep holding on. Think of it like you're on a boat. Hold on. Don't fall off that boat. That storm will pass. It always does. And you'll start feeling better. But that's what I would do in that situation because you can't really do much else physically. This is going to be like a mental game, for the next few days or however long this lasts for. But you got this, man.
That in these moments, it's just self-compassion is so important, and just being gentle with yourself and taking away all those expectations of what I should be doing, and just any gentle messages of safety that, you know, you're okay despite feeling really horrible. Just do what you can do to distract yourself, get through this time and wait till it passes. But yeah, it's tough, and this isn't the time to put expectations on yourself of I should be doing somatic tracking and all these brain retraining exercises. It's just a time to be gentle with yourself.
Yeah. And Joanne, you know,
Go.
just it happens. It's happened to almost everybody. So it's just a part of the process. Don't beat yourself up over it. You'll be okay. You know, you'll be okay.
And it can feel especially hopeless in those moments, because when you feel so horrible, it can feel like, wow, like this is so severe. It doesn't feel like I could possibly get past this. But we know that the severity of symptoms has no correlation with your recovery trajectory. Some people recover very quickly. Anyone and everyone can recover, even if they've had very severe symptoms and for a very long time. So if it feels heavy, that's understandable, because it's a natural reaction when you're feeling so awful. But I just hope and encourage you to remember that I think every one of us has been there, and it does pass, and you will still be okay eventually. And yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No. Great question. Great topic to bring up. All right, next we have a question that came offline from Priya. How can I tell the difference between a genuine setback and a healing response? That is an interesting question and a good one.
That's a great question.
Curious to see, what you think about this.
Yeah. So how do you tell the difference between a setback, as in like, is this me going backwards or is this me moving forward? And the way I like to think of it, it is what we make it. You know, you can have the same kind of flare up, and depending on how you look at that flare up and how you respond and what you do after that, that will actually determine if you go forwards or backwards. So I think the ball is actually in your court. When people, regardless if it's a small flare up or a big flare up, I mean, there's people like we've seen that we've worked directly with, they've had like a 2-month flare up or a 3-month flare up. And going back to the progress cycles, sometimes you can have very, very short progress cycles, really easy ones. It's kind of like going to the gym and having a mild workout. You're just a little bit sore, but you're okay. You can keep going. And then you have these monster workouts. Like, let's say a friend comes along and says, hey, I'll take you through my workout.
Yeah,
and
let's go to boot camp.
Yeah, they put you through a boot camp. Or, yeah, they could just put you through something intense that you're not used to. Boom, you're sore for the next 2 weeks, right? Doesn't mean, you're getting worse. It's just a longer, more intense period of time. So sometimes people can get discouraged if they're in a flare-up for a longer period of time and they can't seem to be getting out. But those bigger progress cycles, they can actually lead to even bigger level ups, So I would just look at it that way. And anytime I had a much longer flare up, that's how I looked at it, and it always worked out. And we see it work out for a lot of people, So I think it is what you make it. Any flare up, whatever it is, you can actually use it as a springboard to get to the next level. And the bigger the flare up, within reason. Obviously, don't go sprint down the street and flare up and be like, oh, the bigger it is, the more I'll level up. But if you're doing stuff, you're in an extended AP or adjustment period, just look at it like a bigger progress cycle. You're going to be good.
Yeah, I really like that, because right from the beginning of the question, I thought, this concept of a setback, because when we're dealing with conditions where it's the brain and the nervous system bringing on symptoms in the absence of structural issues and pathologies, are you ever truly going backwards? Because your body isn't getting worse. You're not getting sicker. You're just feeling worse. And what looks like setbacks when we see people get so symptomatic of getting into a state of being long-term bedbound is, really I guess an adjustment period, but when you're in that fear symptom loop, like every new symptom makes you more terrified, which brings on more symptoms, which makes you more terrified. So you're cycling into this place of the symptoms are so intense, they've just shut you down. So yeah, the mindset in that situation is what determines if it's going to keep you going direction symptomatically that you don't want to be going, or if it's going to keep you on track and this is just part of your journey. If you're still having those messages of safety, not panicking about symptoms, and remembering that you're on the path, you're on the journey, this is the dance, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. And something that helps with that perspective is, I always just knew in my heart, in my soul, that at some point I was going to be normal and be recovered. Like, if I look at life like a timeline, at some point in that timeline, I'm good to go. I'm recovered. So every second that goes by, I'm actually getting closer to that point in the timeline, regardless if it's up and down. So the thing I needed to focus on was making sense of feeling worse sometimes and better. Like, how am I getting better or moving towards this point if I feel worse than I did like last week? But once I understood that this works in cycles and progress cycles and adjustment periods, then it was like, oh, okay. So it doesn't matter if I feel worse than last week, because I could also bounce back even higher. So I think once things start to make sense and there's a lot more logic in the equation, it takes away the emotional part of it. The more logic you have, the less emotional you are about this. And then you start looking at the flare-ups like almost like a scientist. You're just seeing it as data and feedback from the body, not really like a personal attack on you, like your nervous system is out to get you. So it's a different way of looking at it.
And I know you have a free tool that I meant to mention at the beginning, so I want to get that in there for people that are still here or watching the replay. So we'll link that in the description, but tell us what that is for people.
So this is something we've developed. It's the nervous system health assessment. So one of the trickiest parts in recovery that we've seen was, how do you know where you're at on your journey? Because the journey can be so up and down. There's a lot of different variables. So how can you figure out exactly where you're at? And also, like, what are your specific roadblocks? And from those roadblocks, what should you be doing right now? All right, in what general direction should you be, putting your energy into, and what kind of activities? So we created something, and this is based off like a couple thousand submissions from the nervous system health assessment. We looked at the patterns for every stage of recovery, from bedridden to couchbound, housebound, semi-functional, and functional. There's certain strategies and certain roadblocks people run into at those different stages. For example, if you're in the red, which is like bedridden, you're terrified, you're in freeze mode. Anything, like doing anything, is very difficult. So you're a lot more hesitant to do things. Whereas if you're in the semi-functional place, you tend to push harder because you're trying to get back into life. There's not much fear there anymore. You're trying to get, back to things as soon as possible. So different strategies, but this nervous system health assessment, it helps people identify where they're at, what are their main roadblocks, and also some kind of general activity plan. And also, just based on our data, roughly what a timeline could look like for recovery if they use a lot of our recovery principles. There's different timelines depending on how much help they get. So it's a free resource that we put together. Well, free for your community, Raelan. And it's a really cool resource.
Amazing. So yeah, that's linked in the description. So people take a moment definitely to check that out. And I'm going to do something right now that you're probably not supposed to do in live calls. But I'm going to pull up our next question, and then Miguel, I'm going to leave you to answer it. My dog is in the other room. You would think there's a zombie apocalypse happening. I keep muting it. It's been going for 10 minutes. I can't hear myself think, so I have to go make sure that the zombies have not, in fact, taken over. This is the reality.
Go check the zombies.
Of working from home that we're all getting used to, is you have to juggle everything in your home. So what's our next question here? And then I'll let Miguel take care of that while I check out the zombies. Okay. Normally exercise gives more energy. It used to for me, but with CFS, at what point in the recovery progress can you start incorporating exercise and benefiting from it? Oh, I love this question so much. I'm sad to have to leave it, but I will be back in 30 seconds. Over to you, Miguel.
Sounds good. Yeah, so that's a great question. When is it, a good time to introduce physical exercise again? And we like to to build people up, like build a really strong foundation first. So typically, if we start from the bottom, right? If someone's bedridden, we just want to get them able to feed themselves and sit up, right? After that, it's being able to like take a shower every day, being able to move around the house, like eat at the dinner table. After that, it's being able to do chores within their house, dishes, laundry, cleaning the room, vacuuming, that kind of stuff. After that, it's stepping outside the house. And this is like in order of how we reintroduce activities. So then it's stepping outside the house, because you have sunlight, you have a different environment. After that, it's things like driving, if you drive. After that, it's socializing, right? And then you want to do these things and get to a point where you're not always flaring up from these. So once you kind of stabilize at the level, then it's safe to go to the next level. So after you start socializing, then it can be like reintegrating back into work, usually. And then after that, once you have a solid foundation there, then we say, okay, we can start hitting up the gym here and there, right? But I mean, you could start physical exercise pretty soon, even if you're housebound. And when I say exercise, I mean like one squat, assisted squat, like you hold onto the counter or railing and do one squat a day. So that's, for example, where Coach Krista started, a coach in our program. She started not being able to go up and down the stairs, right? And our first exercise program, I wouldn't even call it exercise. It was reconditioning of the muscles. It was 2 squats, 2 assisted squats, holding the counter. And then 2.5 years later, 3 years later, actually, she just hiked 100 kilometers with her partner, who was also in the program, and he was just as bad as her. But both of them hiked 100 kilometers, no symptoms. She's good to go. So you just start somewhere small, and then you build on top of it. But typically, we like to have people at least do the basics. Chores, cook for yourself, be able to shower every day, brush your teeth every day. Then you can start, reconditioning the muscles. In terms of the gym, I'd probably do that after you introduce all this social activity with friends.
Yeah. I could hear the whole thing. So even though I was not physically here, listening. Yeah. And it's such a big one that comes up. And just so people know, there are, in fact, no zombies in my apartment. And my 2 dogs were just sitting out there like little angels. Like, what? And then I came back in and they went crazy. I don't know what's happening. But yeah, the exercise one comes up a lot. And that's like a big one. And I think back to when I started my channel, because starting to exercise again was a big part of my recovery journey. But I realized after, because it was something I was looking forward to, and I worked out a lot before I got CFS, and it was a part of my identity, and I couldn't wait to get back to it. And it was so exciting for me to start being able to do some sort of physical activity again. So I think it's also your mindset towards exercise. Like, is this a happy, joyful thing, or is this like a should, like I'm out of shape and I got to get to the gym, and what does it mean for you?
That's a big one, especially with the walks. People are like, I can walk 5 minutes. I need to get to 6 minutes. I need to get to 8 minutes. And then they get super frustrated when they're like, I wasn't able to increase it by a minute this week. And then, we just ask them straight up, do you even want to go walking, or do you feel like you have to do it in order to recover? And most of the time they're like, I thought I had to walk more. I'm like, no, you don't have to. Just go see a friend. Like, in seeing a friend, you're going to be walking. The walking is a byproduct of just life. So don't unless you love walking, it's not a requirement to have it on your to-do list,
Yeah, it's very individual. One woman, I probably brought this up before, but I've talked to, I call it her pub crawl approach to recovery. And she's in the UK, and she just goes to different she doesn't drink, but she goes and she'll go to ones that have more noise and ones that she's not used to, and it's exciting because that was a normal part of her life, to go visit friends and out with her husband. So she just tries different pubs and goes to increasingly louder and busier ones, and for her, that's how she's showing her nervous system that life is okay again. So
I love that strategy.
Doesn't have to be the gym.
Exactly.
unless that's what you want it to be. All right. What's our next question here? Kayubi, hey, hi. I struggle to apply somatic tracking correctly without falling into a forcing mode. I saw your Moskowitz method video. Oh, I don't know what this is. Is it a better fit to avoid this issue, especially for a visual person?
Yeah, so it sounds like the exercise she's referring to is from Dr. Moskowitz. It's a brain retraining exercise specifically for chronic pain, where you have these pain centers glow, then you dim them down, and then you're actually calming down those pain centers in your brain. If you feel like you're forcing it, I would chunk it down into like 30 to 60 second bouts. And also, this is a game of repetition, especially with a lot of these brain retraining or neuroplasticity exercises. It is a game of repetition and consistency. So another analogy that might help you make sense of this, it's kind of like rock splitting. And imagine you have this massive boulder. I mean, this is one of the biggest mind-shifting video modules we have inside our recovery system. But imagine a big boulder, right? And someone has to manually split that boulder. The way they do it is they take a pin, like a big nail, and then hammer it in one spot. And then they go to the next spot and hammer it in. So next thing you know, you have like 20 spikes in this boulder, and then he just goes across back and forth, hitting it once here, hitting it once, moving over back and forth. Now, if you watch him, it doesn't look like anything is happening at all. He's probably hit it a couple thousand times. No change, right? But eventually, it just takes one more hit, and then the entire boulder splits in half. You guys should search it up. It's pretty cool to see. But that's exactly like brain retraining or neuroplasticity. That's what I call a mind shift. It's when the synapses in your brain, they like form a new connection or they reform a connection. And then your brain kind of knows how to just be normal again, right? And get out of this fight or flight mode. So I would just don't try to look for results right away. It's not going to happen. Like, you have to do it consistently, and it could happen 2 days from now, it could happen a week from now. But the more you try to force it, the more frustrating it will be, which will completely negate exactly what you're trying to do. But I would go look up that video, rock splitting, Kayubi. Go check that out. Then it'll start to make sense.
For people, I know we throw around a lot of terms, and for those of us that have been in this space for a long time, we start to think that everyone knows what they mean. But for people who aren't aware of what somatic tracking is, could you just explain a high level, what is that? What are we referring to with that?
Yeah, so in general, it's basically getting in tune with your body, like becoming aware of the sensations in your body. And that's what you want to call these. Like, we call them symptoms, but they're really sensations in your body, and being able to kind of observe them without judging them, without putting some emotional charge on them. They're not good. They're not bad. It's really just data and feedback from the body. So being able to observe it, and then have this kind of like neutral response about it. That's essentially, from my understanding, what it is in the simplest terms possible. Being able to observe it while being neutral.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at those symptoms with curiosity and neutrality instead of fear.
Yeah.
Which I know can feel like a big ask. And there are times where this is helpful and appropriate, and times where it doesn't make sense. When sensations, I do like that word shift, are more significant and overwhelming. It's not the time to try and probably look at them with neutrality and curiosity when it's when it's a lot, but when they're in that more mild to moderate place, it's really good practice zone to start changing your relationship with symptoms.
Exactly. Yeah. The more neutral, the better.
Yeah. All right. Great question. Next up, from Linda. Hey, Linda, I'm in Raelan's Brain Training 101. Oh, nice to see you. The weekly Zoom meetings make me feel less alone, but when you're alone in this, it's so hard to manage. So how do you, when you're working with clients in your program that are understandably I think virtually all of us feel quite isolated as we go through this, because you have to pull away from so many things in life that you used to do. And just the pandemic and so many things have made all of us more isolated.
Yeah. Yeah. No, loneliness it's a real thing. And, even if you have loved ones or a support system, like, a spouse or friends and family that love and support you, the truth is, like, unless they've had these symptoms, they'll never really understand what you're going through, and you wouldn't want them to, right? So
some days I did. I'm like, just one day. I just want you to have one day of my experience.
That's
24
true.
hours. You can survive 24 hours, and then you go back to being you. And then I don't have to try and explain this to you anymore. I always feel like they look and be like, oh my goodness, this is what your life is like every day? Why didn't you tell me? And I think, I've been telling you every day.
Yeah.
Sorry,
exactly.
I digress. But yes. I wouldn't wish this on anyone for more than 24 hours.
Yeah. So, what was the question again? I totally forgot.
That's my fault.
No,
Dealing
it's
with
okay.
the loneliness and the isolation.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, it's really good you're in Raelan's community, going to the Zoom calls. I think the Zoom calls are so important. People downplay like how much of a difference that makes. I see that as kind of like the anchor to get you back on track, because you could have a really rough week, but those Zoom calls, they bring things back on track. They help you course correct, and if there's a cadence to it, like every week, you can only go so far off path in 1 week, and those Zoom calls get you back on track. Like, for example, we have at this point, I think it's 7 or 8 group calls each week that people can attend almost every day. So we're basically getting them back on track every day. And it's also like, pouring fuel on the fire in a good way, moving things in the right direction. It's like extra fuel to help you progress faster. But I think being in a community, whatever that is, it could be Raelan's channel or my channel, the comment section on channels like this are very positive, very hopeful. Facebook groups are really good as well. It just makes you feel like you're part of a small team versus doing this by yourself. You really want something else to lean on. For me in the early days, I had my doctor there. For the first 3 weeks, I was in a hospital bed and in a wheelchair. That's when he worked with me the most. After that, I was mostly on my own physically, but I knew, okay, if I need some help, I know I can throw some questions his way and he'd be able to help me. And I didn't even use that too much, but just knowing that I had somewhere to turn to, some place that understood me, it really helped. So think of that like your safety net. Just know that you can turn to those people and you're actually not doing this all by yourself. If it was 15 years ago, maybe, because they didn't have all these resources online, but now there's a lot of resources. So I'm glad you're in Raelan's group. Just keep attending those calls.
Yeah, I think, it's truly magic when you find the right spaces to connect with people. And as we know, there are a lot of not so healthy online spaces. So if it doesn't feel good to you, you'll know.
You'll know.
This isn't for me. This isn't helping me. I feel worse as a result of having spent time here.
Yeah.
But in, the structured programs like yours and mine, I think people really underestimate the magic. Linda, I hope that you feel the same, but that happens on these calls. And a lot of people are hesitant to join them for a number of understandable reasons. But if you're in any kind of program with any kind of group support call, I really encourage you to take part in them, or at a minimum watch the replays, because it's so validating, and it just keeps that hope and that fuel alive in you, and you're with people that get it. Like, you'll show up and say, you know what, I washed my hair by myself for the first time in a really long time, and you will get like a standing ovation. Like, people get it. Mm-hmm. Whether you're having one of your better weeks or your not as good weeks, the people are there for you.
Yeah.
And I've read too, and this certainly doesn't replace human interaction, but when we find people online, on TV, on YouTube that we enjoy listening to, it's actually a form, it can be, to supplement in-person human interaction. Like, there are YouTubers that I follow and I think of them as my friends, and I'm quoting them all the time to the people in my life, and I'm so excited when their new videos come out. So not saying that looking at TV shows or YouTube channels replaces in-person, genuine human connection. But there are things that you can do that help you still feel connected, and you can co-regulate your nervous system when you watch people that you feel that they're in a good space. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. And, one of the great benefits of being on calls with live, real people dealing with CFS is it removes that separation of like, oh, I'm the only one who's dealing with this stuff. Because if you're just watching the videos or reading stuff online, I know a part of your brain is saying, well, what if I'm different? Maybe, are these even real people? I know they're real people, but are they like really real people? So when you're on these Zoom calls and you're actually hearing them week by week come with their wins and come with, some of the issues they're dealing with, you see that it's not always sunshine and rainbows. A lot of times we can see the highlights, but when you also see that they're also in flare-up some weeks and you see this fluctuation, but then, a month from now, they're doing way better. Or 3 months from now, someone's gone from like housebound to their first hike, and you're seeing the wins. You're like, wait a minute, I know that person. I've seen them on calls. I saw them when they were in really bad shape. So I think it makes it real when you can actually interact with these people, or at least be on a live call with them. And you don't even, for a lot of people, they don't even keep their camera on our calls. They just listen in. Yeah. But they're not much of talkers, but they comment a lot in the community, and they're like, it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I know we're sticking on this one a bit, but I think it's because you and I really know the power of these, and it's an underutilized resource. And I don't know what it's like in yours, but I know in my program, I have hundreds of people that do not attend ever, and it breaks my heart. And we've been asking about the hesitation. We also have the other end of the spectrum where we have people who join the program, don't care about the course material because they already know it all. They just joined so they could be on the group calls. And these are the people like you and I who get it. And I think sometimes, even though we do share struggles, it can feel like I don't want to join a call with I'm already struggling to hear about everyone else who sounds like they're drowning. And that's really not the vibe of these calls. That overall, it's people that are excited to get together and connect and support one another and celebrate their wins, no matter how small, share some struggles, but it's a really optimistic, uplifting, moving place to be. So I think in this journey, it's massive if you can get yourself into some kind of community like this. And sometimes people connect outside of these calls and they become each other's like support buddies. And usually there's other online spaces connected to them, Facebook groups and stuff that you can also, but anyways, it's finding people who get what you're going through is massive. So I think any way that you can make that happen is a really good investment of your energy.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a reason people recover faster when they do it with other people, or in general. I wouldn't say everybody, but there's a reason. People who attend group calls, people who post wins, people who interact typically recover so much faster than the people who just sit on the sidelines and just observe YouTube videos, Yeah. So it's you can definitely recover with just YouTube videos, but it does help to interact with real humans,
Yeah, I didn't have that. I recovered without all of these things, but it took me a really long freaking time. I'm sure it could have been much quicker had I had everything available that we have now.
Definitely.
Anyways, all right, what do we got next here? Felix. Hey, Felix. Felix from Germany. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks so much, Raelan and Miguel, for all the great recovery content. Ooh, a comment just showing some love our way. Thanks for that, Felix. How would you describe the groups of people that do very well in your recovery programs in terms of character traits, attitudes, routines, beliefs? Oh, I love that question.
I love that question. Finding? That's a great question. So the most common attribute is they come in open-minded. Like when they usually come to us, they're at a point, sometimes they've been dealing with this for decades and they've tried everything under the sun. Doctors, specialists, tests, supplements, every crazy type of treatment you could think of. There's been people who hired a priest to come in and try to rid them of these spirits because they thought they were under some voodoo spell. Like they'll go to those lengths, but they reach a point where they say, everything I've tried hasn't worked. Clearly something works with what these guys are doing. So let me come in with an open mind. Whatever they say, I'm going to believe it. All right, try my best because I know my way isn't working. Clearly this this approach works. So they come in and they're very coachable. Like, we tell them stuff, they're like, okay, I don't know if it's going to work, but okay, I'll give it a try. So they just come in open-minded and willing to try a slightly different approach. That's one thing. And the other thing is just actually using the resources, like actually coming to the calls, making time to prioritize those calls, and even just listen in. That's what we see. Because as long as people are coming to those Zoom calls and they're open-minded, those are like the two factors. And obviously, you have to actually believe that recovery is possible. If you don't believe and you're just going through the motions, it's not going to work as effective as if, you actually believe you could recover, right?
Yeah, all of that, 100%. I'm thinking to people that come in very much prepared, even if somewhat hesitantly, to be in the driver's seat of all of this. And they're ready to take in the information, consider all the tools, but also know that ultimately they know what's best for them. So I see people saying, I really like this one tool you've put out, but this part of it doesn't resonate for me, so I've changed it, or I do it in this other way, and that works for me. So people that know that someone else doesn't have the 100% prescription for them, there's insights and tools and things that can help them, but ultimately they're like, I know me, and I'm going to take all of this in and then adapt it as needed. And I even though it'll feel a little bit confusing and scary sometimes, I trust that I can play around and figure out what works best for me, as opposed to waiting for someone to tell you minute by minute for your day what you need to do. Just taking back that empowerment of, I've got this, and I'm going to work with you in this program and these people and make it fit for me, and trust that I know what's best for me.
Exactly. I want to be, the people who do the best are all, like you said, they're pretty adaptable, pretty adaptable. They can tweak things, and as long as they can get the main concepts, like the main principles, you kind of adapt it to your situation. And sometimes we help them with that if we're doing one-on-one stuff with them. But just coming in with an open mind, believing that recovery is actually possible, and then just showing up. Honestly, showing up is like half the battle. Come to those calls.
Yeah, I bring up the willingness to adapt things and trust yourself, because I see a lot, and I know I used to feel this way, so it's understandable if other people do. When I first started hearing about brain retraining, I thought it was almost some magic potion, as in,
Me too.
Like, you need to say these 7 words in this order while doing these body movements, and do it 3 times in a row at these specific times. Like, it was so bizarre to me, this concept of, how am I going to retrain my brain? And I better follow this to the letter, and it's going to somehow make something click in my brain. But it's now, I think probably most viewers and listeners understand this now, because this isn't as new as it used to be, but we're doing brain retraining all the time, and there's many different ways to go about it. So yeah. All right. Okay. Let me see how many. We're going to wrap up in a few minutes. What can we fit in before we close this out? Any more questions for us? Lynn. Hey, Lynn. I was housebound for 2 years and went from 300 meters to 6 kilometers in 10 weeks by using Dan Buglio's approach. Okay. Since August, I am back housebound, and the former tools don't seem to work. Oh, this is another great question.
That is a great question. Shout out to Dan. He's got a great YouTube channel. So with this, obviously you're going to need to change the approach a little bit. It worked at one point, so you don't really have to get rid of everything. But when I see 300 meters to 6 kilometers in 10 weeks, that is a lot. That's a huge jump. That's a 20x increase in activity, in addition to all the other stuff you're probably doing. So you have probably accelerated maybe too quickly if you are back to housebound. So the other thing is, you're probably in a really big adjustment period, right? Just a huge progress cycle, because you've taken on so much activity. So I would stabilize first. I wouldn't try to get back to doing that as soon as possible. Stabilize. Just take it easy. Take your foot off the gas pedal for at least a couple weeks. And then I have no doubt you'll be able to get back there. But maybe this time just go a little bit more gradual. Like 10 weeks a 20x increase in activity in 10 weeks is a lot. So I think you did all the right stuff, but maybe just a little bit too fast. I just slow it down a tiny bit, but good stuff, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, nervous system might have had a little bit of a panic attack and thrown the brakes on.
Yeah.
I'm wondering as well, and I don't know if you see this, but I'm thinking about Christy Yuppie, who I've interviewed. She's incredible. She's the founder of the Better Mind Center, and she's the host of the Curable podcast, Like Mind, Like Body. So just really a ton of experience, works very closely with Dr. Howard Schubner and many other giants in this field. And she talked about how her approach was when she worked with people, the first place they start, I hope I'm paraphrasing this correctly, but is looking at fear of symptoms and fear of activity and environment. So addressing that fear component, because we know that's huge, right? We're trying to put our nervous system at ease. And once they've worked through the fear of symptoms and the fear of different environments and activities, and if symptoms haven't completely gone away or they keep coming back, then they look at potentially there might be some deeper work that also needs to be done, like something that was bringing this up in the first place, whether it's emotions that you're suppressing or things in your daily life that are setting you off or things you're carrying from your past. People have different views on this, how you should best go about it, whether it's through journaling or therapy or just, finding ways to have your emotions flow and be felt in the moment. But I imagine that's something you see with people you work with as well, that sometimes there's just more of a root cause of this that also needs to be explored. Yeah.
A lot of times one of the hidden culprits is the emotional side of things. So for example, someone could be doing the same physical activity and progressing, pretty steadily. All of a sudden they get hit and they're in this big flare up. And they're like, I don't know what I did wrong. I've been doing the same stuff. I've been sticking to the plan. And we're like, okay. So physically that can't be the trigger because it's been quite consistent. And we start kind of asking deeper questions. What's happening in life right now? Relationships good? Are you moving? New job? Did you get something in the mail with some crazy news? And a lot of times that's the case. There are these things that once we actually analyze a situation, they're the obvious culprits that cause this certain flare up. And then sometimes you just can't see that when you're in the thick of it. That's where it really helps to have a coach or somebody outside you to be able to see your blind spots, right? And that way you'll be able to work on those. Or there's going to be an obvious trigger. So that means you just need to dial it back in other areas of life so that you can manage this like emotional stressor, Yeah,
that's a really good point. I actually just recently interviewed Dr. Becca Kennedy. I love getting to talk to so many of you amazing people doing this work in this field. And she said something very similar. A good place to start is just looking at your immediate past, your present, and what's coming up in the immediate future. Like, is there something that's anxiety provoking that you just went through, are currently going through, or are worrying about that's coming up? So, I mean, it's individual. So it's hard to give, a black and white answer to everyone. There is some detective work on people's parts that they have to think about. But that's the point of these discussions and these videos, is to show you these different things and then you to be like, okay, that doesn't sound quite right, but that might be something actually that gets me thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. One more question to finish us off. What do we have here?
This has been fun. It's always fun coming on here.
Okay. Drum roll.
All right.
Oh, okay. How do you begin dealing with emotions, or to even know what emotions to deal with? Oh, that's a big one to finish off on. We could probably do an hour on that one, but we'll see what we can put out. That's helpful quickly on the topic of emotions.
How do you begin dealing with emotions, or where do you even start? Because they can get very messy, right? And we, similar to the other question of how much should I do? What is the right amount? We get asked this same question probably just as much. So like we even created a guide on this. We'll probably give you guys access to it for free. It's a very simple, like 3-page PDF, but the way how we tell people to deal with it, at first, just observe it. A lot of these emotions, especially if you have a hypersensitive nervous system, they're like false alarms. They are real emotions, but there may be not a big reason for them to come up. Because remember, everything's amplified. So these are like almost false emotions coming up in a way. I mean, they're real, but they don't mean too much, right? So for our folks, we tell them just observe it. Observe it without judging it. That's the big thing. For example, if you're feeling frustrated, feel that frustration, but just observe it. It's like, it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay. And it usually goes away within a few minutes, right? Or I'm feeling scared or upset. Just observe it. It's an emotion that's fleeting. It comes and goes in waves. But as long as you don't start like interacting with it and start saying, well, why do I feel that way? What's the root cause? As long as you just try not to engage with it, just observe it, usually in most cases, it actually just fades away, fairly quickly. As long as you don't judge it and you don't start engaging with it. And people have been loving that approach. They say it's a game changer. That's the feedback we've gotten. So we'll share that with you guys.
Yeah. Oh, so if it's not, it probably isn't already in the description if you're here live, but we'll get it up there shortly after. So if you're here right now, check back in a few minutes and we'll make sure everything is linked. I love that answer. And that's in line with what most people tell me. Just most emotions just want some space. Mm-hmm. And I heard an emotion felt is an emotion changed. It's not that you actively have to try and fix it. It's just
observe it.
Yeah. Incredible. Okay. So, let me see. Last one. I urge everyone to keep going with Miguel and Raelan's guidance. I have made so much progress and I'm having a real life again because of these two people. DK Clever. That is so amazing. I'm so happy to hear that. We get firsthand what it's like when you start to feel like your real life is coming back again, and really happy that you're having that and that you found things that we've put out there helpful. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And on that note, as we wrap up, I know you mentioned you have different things in your program, but for people who aren't already a part of it or considering right now, maybe this is something for me, what are the options that you have for people who are looking for support?
Yeah. So there's a few different options, a few different tiers. So there's like a do-it-yourself program. That one is just, $47 a month. You get a community, you get weekly calls. And then we have a higher tier, which is Recovery Academy, $297 a month. That one, there's several group coaching calls every single week for like people in the beginning stages of CFS, and then more advanced as in they're more functional, not like more severe. And then there's also caregiver calls. So calls that their support system or their loved ones can come to so they understand what's going on. And lots of different tools in there. There's a huge community there. And then we have the Platinum program. That one, the price varies, but there's a lot of one-on-one help. So ongoing personalized plans will literally tell people how much they should be doing, and we'll adjust that plan depending on how their body's responding. 5 days a week, access to chat with a coach, and one-on-one coaching calls every single month. That's basically got all the things in place to make it to make it like a big safety net. It's very hard to not make progress when you have that much support and you know exactly what to do.
Yeah, I love that there's so many options. People are comfortable with different levels of support, or people's budgets are only set for, different programs, or maybe they just want to dip their toe in before they go all in. So there's lots of different accessible ways for people to get involved. Miguel, I have so much respect for what you're doing. I know, firsthand, I see how hard you and your incredible team all work to continually make this better, give the best experience for people possible. And I see how much I've interviewed many of your coaches, how much they all care, how much you care. So we are very lucky to have you and your team out in the world helping as many people as you are. And just massive gratitude to you for everything that you do and for taking some time to speak with the viewers on my channel here today. Thank you, Miguel.
Thank you so much. It was a fun one.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone who joined us live and for all the incredible questions. They were great. Gave us a really, hopefully, helpful conversation here for people. If you're watching the replay, let us know in the comments if anything stood out. Share your experience. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks again, Miguel. Thanks to everyone who's watching. Make sure to take a moment to check out the description to learn more about Miguel, get links to his YouTube channel, his free resources that he shared today, his paid programs, and all of that good stuff.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
See you guys.